You're single anyway. My sister dumped her 5 kids on me for a family vacation while my parents backed her up, so I gave them a reality check they'll never forget. I'm 32 years old, single, a full-time nurse, and according to my family, that apparently meant I had nothing important going on. I worked 12-hour shifts at St. Mary's Medical Center, sometimes longer when the emergency unit got overwhelmed, and the little free time I had was usually spent sleeping, meal prepping, or trying to recover from the emotional exhaustion that came with taking care of sick people every single day. But none of that mattered to my older sister Vanessa. In her eyes, because I didn't have a husband or children, my life was basically an extended vacation. Vanessa had 5 kids under the age of 12, and she treated motherhood like it was a punishment the rest of the family needed to help her survive. Don't get me wrong, I loved my nieces and nephews, but loving children and being forced to raise them for free were two completely different things. My parents worshipped Vanessa because she was the firstborn and because she had given them grandchildren. Every family gathering turned into a praise session about how hard her life was while my accomplishments got brushed aside like background noise. I could literally save a patient's life during a difficult shift, and my mother would still look me in the eye and say, "That's nice, dear, but Vanessa is exhausted." Raising 5 children is harder than any job. After years of hearing that, I stopped arguing. I just learned to keep my distance. One Friday morning, after finishing an overnight shift that nearly broke me mentally, I drove home feeling like a zombie. My feet hurt, my back hurt, and I had barely eaten in 14 hours. I remember fantasizing about taking the hottest shower possible and sleeping until evening. But when I pulled into my driveway, I noticed a large SUV parked outside my house. The moment I stepped out of my car, I heard screaming, laughing, and something that sounded suspiciously like glass breaking. My stomach dropped. Before I could even process what was happening, my front door burst open and Vanessa came rushing out wearing expensive sunglasses and vacation clothes while dragging 2 giant suitcases behind her. Her husband Derek followed with beach bags and passports in his hands. 5 children stormed around my living room like wild raccoons. Perfect timing. Vanessa shouted happily. "We were worried you'd still be at work." I blinked at her slowly. "Why are you in my house?" She laughed like I had told a joke. "Mom gave me your spare key months ago. Anyway, Derek and I desperately need a vacation. The whole family agreed you should help us." I stared at her in complete disbelief. "Help you? How?" Vanessa casually adjusted her purse strap and smiled. "By watching the kids for 2 weeks." I actually thought she was joking at first. Then I noticed the luggage, the passports, the kids already unpacking snacks onto my couch. She was serious. I laughed once, purely out of shock. "Absolutely not." Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly. "Excuse me." I said no, I repeated. "I just worked 14 hours. I'm not babysitting 5 kids for 2 weeks. Derek rolled his eyes dramatically while checking his watch. "Come on, don't make this difficult." "Difficult?" I snapped. "You invited yourselves into my house." Before Vanessa could answer, my phone started ringing. Of course it was my mother. I already knew what was coming. The second I answered, she sighed dramatically into the phone. "Sophia, please don't start problems." "Mom, they're trying to leave 5 children with me for 2 weeks." "Because they need a break," she replied sharply. "Vanessa is overwhelmed." I laughed bitterly. "And what about me? I work nonstop." "You're single anyway," my mother said casually, like that explained everything. "It's not like you have your own family to take care of." That sentence hit me harder than it should have. Not because I wanted children desperately, but because of how easily they dismissed my entire existence. Years of sacrifice, years of exhausting work, years of helping everyone financially whenever they needed it, and apparently I still ranked below everyone else because I lived alone. I looked through the doorway at Vanessa smirking confidently behind her sunglasses because she already knew our parents would support her. Something inside me finally snapped quietly into place. I suddenly stopped feeling angry. Instead, I felt calm. Very calm. And honestly, that should have scared them. I took a deep breath and smiled sweetly. You know what? Fine. Vanessa blinked in surprise. Really? Sure, I said pleasantly. Go enjoy your vacation. Her entire face lit up. See? I told Derek you'd stop being dramatic. My mother immediately started praising me through the phone while Vanessa hugged me quickly without even noticing how cold my expression had become. Within 20 minutes, they were gone. 5 children remained behind, turning my peaceful house into complete chaos. The youngest was drawing on my walls with markers before Vanessa's SUV even disappeared from the street. I stood there silently, watching the destruction unfold, while my exhaustion slowly transformed into determination. Because my family thought I was weak. They thought being single made me available. They thought being kind meant being stupid. And for the first time in my life, I decided I was done proving I was the dependable daughter. Instead, I was going to teach every single one of them exactly what happened when they pushed me too far. And unlike them, I had patience. I was a nurse after all. I knew exactly how to wait for the perfect moment. The first 3 days were absolute hell. I barely slept because the kids treated my house like an amusement park with no rules. 8-year-old Tyler somehow clogged my upstairs toilet with an entire roll of paper towels while the twins kept fighting over everything from cereal to television remotes. The youngest, Mia, cried every night because she missed her mother, and honestly, she was the only one I genuinely felt bad for. None of this was really the children's fault. They had been raised by parents who believed responsibility could always be dumped onto someone else. Vanessa called exactly twice during those first days, and both times she spent more time talking about her luxury resort than asking how her kids were doing. Oh my God, Sophia, you'd love this place, she said during one video call while sipping a bright pink drink beside a swimming pool. The spa here is incredible. Meanwhile, I was scrubbing chocolate syrup off my curtains while trying to stop 2 boys from wrestling each other with broomsticks. That's nice, I replied flatly. She didn't even notice my tone. By the way, Tyler mentioned he got in trouble? Don't be too strict with him. You know how sensitive he is. I stared at the phone in disbelief. Sensitive? That child had literally tried to microwave a metal spoon 30 minutes earlier. But I simply smiled. Don't worry. I'm handling everything. And I was handling it. Better than anyone expected. That was the funny part. Despite the chaos, the kids slowly started settling into routines because, unlike their parents, I actually enforced boundaries. Breakfast happened at the same time every morning. Screens were limited. Everyone cleaned up after themselves. Homework got finished before games. By the end of the first week, the house was calmer than Vanessa's probably ever was. The older kids even started helping with chores without being asked twice. One night, while I was helping Mia brush her teeth, she looked up at me innocently and asked, "Why doesn't Mommy stay with us like this?" That question sat heavily in my chest long after she fell asleep. But while the children were improving, my resentment toward the adults in my family kept growing stronger. Every single day, my mother posted photos online about Vanessa's well-deserved family vacation, while not mentioning once that I was the unpaid nanny holding everything together. Then came the final straw. 10 days into the vacation, I got an alert from my banking app while sitting in the hospital break room during a double shift. Someone had tried to withdraw $3,000 from my savings account. My heart nearly stopped. I immediately froze my account and called the bank, only to discover the person attempting the withdrawal had my personal information and security answers. Information only family members would know. My stomach twisted violently as realization hit me. Vanessa. The second I got home that night, I searched through my office drawer where I kept important documents and instantly noticed things had been moved. Someone had clearly gone through them. I called Vanessa immediately. She answered, sounding annoyed. Sophia, can this wait? We're about to go snorkeling. Did you try to access my bank account? Silence. Then an irritated sigh. Oh my God, are you seriously overreacting about that? My blood ran cold. You did. Relax, she snapped. We just needed to borrow some money. Derek's card got temporarily locked. I couldn't even speak for a second. You tried to steal $3,000 from me. Borrow, she corrected smugly. And honestly, after everything we go through raising children, you could help without acting selfish. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I finally understood something important. These people genuinely believed they were entitled to my life. My time, my money, my home, everything. And if I allowed this to continue, they would keep taking forever. That night, after the kids fell asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen and started planning carefully. Not emotional revenge. Precise revenge. The kind that would force them to confront exactly who they were. First, I contacted my lawyer friend Nina and explained everything, including the attempted bank fraud. Nina was horrified. Sophia, this is criminal. I know, I said calmly. But I don't want them arrested. Then what do you want? I stared toward the hallway where the children slept peacefully. I want them humbled. Nina became very quiet after that before slowly saying, I think I can help. Over the next few days, we gathered screenshots, bank records, text messages, and proof that Vanessa had illegally attempted to access my finances. Meanwhile, I continued acting perfectly normal whenever my family called. I smiled. I reassured them. I played the role they expected from me, dependable, quiet Sophia. But behind the scenes, I was setting every piece into place like a chess game. Then I discovered the final piece of information that changed everything. Completely by accident, Tyler mentioned during dinner that his parents had told the children they might not come home soon because they were looking at beach houses. I frowned immediately. What do you mean? Tyler shrugged. Daddy said maybe we'll live there if Aunt Sophia keeps helping with us. The fork nearly slipped from my hand. They weren't planning a 2-week vacation anymore. They were testing whether they could permanently dump their responsibilities onto me while they escaped. Suddenly, every puzzle piece fit together perfectly. The financial theft. The extended stay. The lack of concern. They never intended to simply ask for help. They intended to use me until I broke. But unfortunately for them, they had underestimated the quiet single nurse they thought had no real life. And now, I was finally ready to make my move. The next morning, I called my mother sounding sweeter than I had in years. Mom, I've been thinking, I said gently while packing the kids' lunches. Maybe you were right. Maybe I judged Vanessa too harshly. My mother practically melted over the phone. I knew you'd come around. Actually, I continued calmly, I think family should support each other more often. Exactly, she said proudly. That's what I've been trying to teach you. I smiled to myself. So I had an idea. Since Vanessa and Derek may need more help long term, maybe we should all sit down together when they come back and discuss permanent arrangements. There was a short pause. Permanent. Well, I said casually, raising 5 children is exhausting. You said it yourself. And since I'm single anyway, maybe I should become their primary caregiver. My mother immediately sounded relieved instead of concerned. Honestly, that might be best for everyone. There it was. Confirmation. They truly expected me to sacrifice my entire life because it was convenient for them. I spent the next few days preparing carefully. Nina helped me organize every piece of evidence into a neat little folder. Screenshots of Vanessa admitting she tried to borrow my money, proof my parents gave her access to my house without permission, text messages demanding free childcare, and even recordings of my mother repeatedly saying my life mattered less because I was unmarried. Then I did something else too. Something that made the revenge even sweeter. I stopped covering for Vanessa completely. Whenever the kids called her crying, I handed them the phone directly instead of calming them down myself. Whenever teachers emailed about schoolwork, I forwarded everything to Vanessa and Derek without handling it. I even started sending daily expense requests for groceries, medicine, and childcare supplies. At first, Vanessa ignored them. Then came the angry texts. "Why are you suddenly acting like a babysitter charging clients?" I responded instantly. "Because I am babysitting 5 children. For free." Her reply came seconds later. "You know we can't afford all this." I stared at the message for a long moment before typing the words I had waited years to say. "Then maybe you shouldn't have had 5 kids expecting everyone else to raise them." She didn't respond after that. 3 days later, Vanessa and Derek finally returned home. I knew they were back because my mother called demanding I stop being dramatic and bring the children over immediately. So I did. But not alone. I loaded every single suitcase, backpack, toy bin, medication bottle, school form, and grocery receipt into my car. Then I drove straight to my parents' house with all 5 children happily buckled in the back seat. When I arrived, Vanessa was standing outside looking annoyed and sunburned while Derek unloaded luxury shopping bags from their trunk. My father sat on the porch pretending none of this involved him. The second Vanessa saw all the luggage, she frowned. "Why did you bring everything?" I smiled pleasantly. "Because they're moving in." Silence. "What?" she asked slowly. I pulled a folder from my purse and handed copies to everyone. "Since all of you agreed my life is less important because I'm single, I've decided to help the family properly." My mother flipped through the papers, confusion turning into panic as she recognized screenshots and bank records. "Sophia, no," I interrupted calmly. "You all said Vanessa needed help more than I needed my own life. So congratulations. You volunteered." Vanessa's face paled instantly. "What are you talking about?" I folded my arms. "Mom and Dad have a 4-bedroom house. They're retired. They constantly say motherhood is harder than my career, so clearly they're more qualified to help than I am. You can't just dump them here." Vanessa shouted. I laughed softly. Interesting choice of words. Derek stepped forward angrily. "Stop acting crazy." That was when I handed him another envelope. His expression changed immediately after opening it. "What is this?" "Evidence of attempted financial fraud," I replied coolly. "Including recorded admissions from both of you. Nina says the bank takes these things very seriously." Vanessa's entire face drained of color. "You recorded me?" "You tried to steal from me," I answered flatly. "Actually, I've already spoken with a lawyer. If another dollar disappears from my accounts, if another person enters my home without permission, or if anyone attempts to abandon these children with me again, I'll move forward legally." My mother looked horrified. "You'd see your own family?" I stared directly at her. "You treated me like unpaid property." For the first time in years, nobody had a response. Then came the part that truly shattered them. I pulled out one final document and handed it directly to Vanessa. "By the way, since you were apparently considering leaving your kids with me permanently, I contacted Child Protective Services anonymously to ask what qualifies as abandonment." Vanessa looked like she might faint. "You did what?" "Relax," I said with the exact same smug tone she once used on me. "I was just gathering information." My father finally stood up from the porch. "Okay, enough." "No," I said firmly. "Not enough. I have spent my entire adult life being treated like my career, my exhaustion, and my existence mattered less because I didn't have children. Meanwhile, Vanessa got endless support no matter how irresponsible she behaved. That ends today. Then I turned toward the kids, who thankfully were distracted inside with snacks and cartoons. I love those children, I said more quietly. But they're your responsibility, not mine. Vanessa started crying then, but honestly, it didn't move me anymore. Not after years of manipulation. Not after she tried stealing from me. My mother attempted to guilt-trip me one final time. Family is supposed to sacrifice for each other. I nodded slowly. Exactly. Funny how that only ever applied to me. Then I left. And for the first time in years, I drove home feeling peaceful. A month later, things looked very different. Vanessa had to cancel her plans of starting over somewhere tropical because nobody was available to raise her children for her anymore. Derek picked up extra work. My parents suddenly became much less enthusiastic about volunteering their own time after realizing what caring for 5 children actually involved. Meanwhile, I changed my locks, tightened my finances, and finally started living for myself again. The funniest part? My family now treated me with careful respect. Because they finally understood something important. Being quiet does not mean being weak. And the dependable person everyone takes for granted usually knows exactly where all the cracks are hiding. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to watch more stories from my channel, and as always, stay happy and safe.